Earth counts 9 pacts, Gate of Earth origin, admit defeat. Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 70 based on novel. So let's start. If one could understand 40 to 50% of a language, the rest which they didn't understand would become like a ciphertext. According to the words said in front and behind, one could be able to guess the meaning of those coded words. This was what Qin Mu had done. He originally knew nothing about the devil language, but because of fate, he had heard the devil language at Goddess Pass in great ruins and memoized it. After that, he had met a devil god who was sealed in the wall and doom suppression palace, who taught him great freedom mudra, so he learned a bit more of the devil language. With this knowledge, he could deduce what was being said. It was like deciphering a ciphertext. In the oath Qin Devil King had made 3 times, there were numerous devil language words, and they were extremely pure. Qin Mu knew since a long time ago that the language of gods and devils contained a terrifying might. While listening to the 3 times Qin Devil King made his oath, Qin Mu mastered the devil language to an astonishing degree. If Qin Devil King now made an oath with him in human language, he could use it to compare to what was said before and learn the words of the devil language he hadn't understood before. It wasn't wrong of Qin Devil King to say that he had taken the chance to learn. Now it wasn't too hard for Qin Mu to converse with Qin Devil King in devil language, but to be on the safe side, he felt that it was still better to use the human language. He could then completely understand the meaning of the sentences, so that he wouldn't get tricked by Qin Devil King. Qin Mu's gaze flickered. In that case, does Devil King still want to make an oath? Qin Devil King sneered, yes, naturally yes. He knew Qin Mu planned to take this chance to master the devil language completely, but he could do nothing about it. The only other option was to kill Qin Mu, but if he did that, he would disappear as well. He was just a consciousness and magic power. Spirits of the deceased come back, Earth counts 9 pacts, we submit ourselves to you. Qin Devil King's voice sounded out, and called Earth Count's taboo name to rouse the attention of this ruler of Yudu. This time he used the human language, so he had no way to play any tricks. Qin Mu carefully noted the meaning of each and every word. He was very careful and studied them over and over again. In time, he felt an indescribable energy surging forth from a deep space. This energy became stronger and stronger, forming half a gate in his mind. Qin Devil King completed the oath and looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu became even more confident in his devil language after comparing the oath's words in both languages. Only then did he speak the oath as well, and when he reached the part where it said we submit ourselves to you, he could feel a pair of eyes landing on his body. To be exact, they landed on his soul. His soul shuddered as he felt a limitless power and the immensity of the one who controls the souls. This was an existence who controlled all the souls and held boundless power. He had no interest in the corporeal body, just the soul. If one violated the oath, he would descend and take away the soul of the violator. Qin Mu continued to speak out the oath of alliance, and half a gate gradually appeared in front of his eyes. This gate matched the half of Qin Devil King's, forming a complete gate. Beyond it, there was endless darkness. However, below the gate, Qin Mu saw a yellow spring, although it probably shouldn't be called that. It was a bright and dazzling stream that had 9 bends and 18 curves, which grew thicker and thicker towards the bottom, looking like the river of heaven. At the bottom of the endless yellow spring, he saw an emotionless gaze. This bright golden stream wasn't the yellow springs, but horns. These were the 2 horns on the head of Earth Count, the controller of souls. Earth Count's 9 pacts held of the meaning of the 9 bends. 9 pacts were 9 bends. His horns were the 9 bends, the yellow spring. Qin Mu and Qin Devil King had made an oath, and it was formed on the 9 bends of the horns of this majestic primitive god. Why was violating the oath called breaking a pact? It should be related to Earth Count's 9 pacts. The oath of alliance was formed on the 9 bends of the yellow spring, so if one violated the oath, Earth Count would take away their soul. When the oath of alliance was finished, the gate closed and the vision in front of Qin Mu's eyes vanished. He he, he he he. Ju Qian Devil King's laugh rang out, and Qin Mu was bewildered. What's Devil King laughing about? Nothing much. Ju Qian Devil King laughed non-stop, but he still couldn't resist saying it out loud while chuckling. Brat, even though you're as clever as a devil, you still fell into my trap. You made an oath with me and not my true body. I'm only a consciousness, and you made an oath with it. Now you better work for me sincerely. As for the words of Yudu, don't think that I'll tell you anything about them. This consciousness of mine can just be eliminated, I don't care. Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open, unable to return to his senses for quite a while. Ju Qian Devil laughed long and loud and was very pleased with himself, as he admired Qin Mu's helpless figure. After a moment, Qin Mu let out a breath and muttered, "No wonder Grandpa Cripple always told me to treat others with a smile and stab them in the back at the same time. Devil King, you're really a professional. Luckily, I'm not bad as well." Ju Qian Devil King's heart tightened. Qin Mu muttered to himself, "I've also a trick up my sleeve. I decided to kill your subjects wave after summoning them. This won't be seen as breaking the pact." Ju Qian Devil King was startled. Both of them fell silent. After a moment, Ju Qian Devil King said, "We're only harmful to each other like this. Since you don't believe me, there's no need to continue living in your body. I'll choose the second option. You will create a mechanism, and I'll leave your body to leech onto the god statue. Don't worry, I'll teach you the language of Yudu after you finish building the god statue mechanism. Deal." Qin Mu was exhilarated. Old Ma frequently forged all kinds of furniture, and he had learned quite some handicraft from him. Including the path of painting and calligraphy he learned from deaf, and smelting he had learned from mute. It wasn't that troublesome for him to create a god statue mechanism. Qin Mu was about to start working on it, when he felt a chill down his spine, and cold sweat rolled down his forehead. I almost got tricked by him. Before making the god statue mechanism for him, I have to summon the devils to complete the oath. Otherwise, if I only concentrate on creating the god statue mechanism, and he teaches the language of Yudu to me without me summoning the devils, I'll be violating the oath and my soul will be taken away by Earth Count. Ju Qian Devil King exclaimed in admiration, "You're pretty good. If you came to my Ju Qian, you could survive there with your wits." Qin Mu let out a breath. If he wasn't careful when dealing with an existence like Ju Qian Devil King, even his bone marrows might be devoured by him. He went to the west room to get some money, preparing to buy some winter crystal iron and wood to sculpt the god statue. However, he saw Hu Linga standing at the door, looking around. Qin Mu smiled. "Linga, why aren't you cultivating, but standing around here?" Hu Linga said with worry, "Imperial Preceptor still owes us 1,000 Great Abundance coins, it's time for him to repay." Qin Mu shook his head and went to the warehouse to get some materials, moving them to the courtyard. Sculpting a god statue wasn't hard for him. In just half a day, he had sculpted 5 different kinds of wooden statue under the guidance of Ju Qian Devil King. They were all sculptures of devil gods. "These 5 fellows are those that don't accept my rule. It's a treat to me if you summon them over to kill them." Ju Qian Devil King smiled. When Qin Mu finished sculpting the wooden statues, he cooked dishes and called Hu Linga, who was still at the door, to eat. She came over with a blank expression, and when she ate halfway, she suddenly muttered in a daze, "Young master, Imperial Preceptor still owes us 1,000 coins." Qin Mu took out a smelting furnace, which he had stolen from Roland's Golden Palace, to smelt winter crystal irons to forge the parts, which were needed in making the god statue mechanism. While he worked busily until midnight, the scholars living around him couldn't sleep from the ruckus he was creating and complained to the directorates. A few directorates came forth personally and asked him politely to stop. Qin Mu could only do as they told him and went to sleep. On the second day, he opened the room's door and washed up, yet he kept feeling that something was missing. After thinking for a while, he finally remembered that there was something missing under the blanket when he was sleeping yesterday. "It seems like Linga didn't tunnel under my blanket to sleep last night." Qin Mu pushed open the gate to the courtyard and saw Hu Linga standing at the head of the dragon Cheline, who was outside. She was looking at the entrance to Scholar's residence and her eyes were red, which showed that she hadn't slept the whole night. "Young master, Imperial Preceptor still owes us 1,000 Great Abundance coins," she said with disappointment. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He carried her up and tucked her away under the blanket, before continuing to forge the god statue mechanism. When it came to the third day, Hu Linga was still standing guard at the gate. The little fox only weekly came back at night for dinner, sitting there in a daze for a long while. "Imperial Preceptor still owes us 1,000 Great Abundance coins." When the fourth day came, Hu Linga didn't say anything and didn't go to the door to wait. She had an unhappy expression on her face. Qin Mu asked with concern what was wrong, and she said, "I guess Imperial Preceptor really won't return the money." Qin Mu finally finished creating the god statue mechanism. It had 4 heads and 8 arms, and every joint in the body could move freely. All kinds of totem markings were imprinted on the body, yet Qin Mu didn't let Juqian, Devil King, enter it immediately. At this moment, knocking sounds came from outside, and Qin Mu took a glance at Hu Linga. He saw that the little fox was still in a daze and didn't go to open the door. He couldn't help shaking his head, and went to open the door himself. An elder stood in front of the door. His clothes were old, but they were very clean. He smiled. "Is this young master Qin Mu? I'm the butler of Imperial Preceptor's manor, and my surname is Fu. I have come under the orders of Imperial Preceptor to return the money." Qin Mu was astonished. "Elder Fu, the rewards from the Emperor have come." Elder Fu said, "That's right, they arrived." The Emperor rewarded Imperial Preceptor with 100 palace maids and 1,000,000 gold. Imperial Preceptor accepted these gifts, but the 100 palace maids are giving him a headache. He can't support all of them, but luckily there's some money now. However, after returning all the debts, I reckon only half of it will be left. "Young Master Qin, here's the 1,000 coins." Qin Mu wanted to call Hu Linga over when he saw a flash of white light streak across his eyes. Hu Linga rushed over as if she was flying and snatched the coin pouch from Elder Fu's hands with a sweet smile. "Seems like Imperial Preceptor is a person of credibility. Thanks for the trouble, Elder Fu." Elder Fu was astonished and didn't say anything. He then warned Qin Mu, "Young Master Qin is wealthy, so you must be careful. Recently there's been a thief running amok in the capital city. Many rich officials have been robbed. The worst was Imperial Physician Yu. He cried in bed for so many days. There were also a few high officials who were robbed and didn't dare to say anything, because they had lost too many treasures. Only their servants are discussing it." As he was talking about it, 2 elders walked into Scholar's residence while wearing brightly colored clothes and pieces of gold and silver jewelry, looking very extravagant. One of them was a cripple while the other looked like a middle-aged householder. They both seemed rich and imposing. Elder Fu saw the situation and said, "You have visitors, so I won't disturb you any longer. I still have to go return the money to the others' families. 2 of them had too much stolen, so if I don't return money to them, they will probably have to starve from today onwards." Cripple and Old Ma walked over. The former's face was glowing radiantly, while the latter had an air about him that said wealth meant nothing to him. Qin Mu invited both of them over and said, "Where did Grandpa Cripple and Grandpa Ma go these few days?" Old Ma said, "Cripple tagged along with me to Lizhu, sending disaster relief." Cripple smiled. Over there at Lizhu, the rebellion caused chaos and destruction, resulting in starving people everywhere. Old Ma and I earned quite a bit of money, so we sent disaster relief there. Don't look at how we are wearing bright and neat clothes, these are all fake. This golden chain is wood that's gold-plated, and even this jade pendant is also fake. The real ones had been pawned off by Old Ma in exchange for rice and noodles which were sent to Lizhu. The fellows from your heavenly devil cult are also there, helping everyone, so we handed the money for the rations to them as well. Qin Mu smiled. In that case, Imperial Physician, you actually did a good deed. When he mentioned the devil summoning to the 2 elders, Cripple asked with interest, "That actually happened? You didn't throw my face and got scammed by that devil king, did you? You should let Old Ma handle this. Ma Wangshan has 3 eyes and he's the best at subduing devils." The heart of Old Ma's brows suddenly split open, and revealed a white flesh ball. It turned half around towards the side and revealed an eye that shone bright Buddha light onto the center of Qin Mu's brows. Screeching cries came from there, and a voice shouted in misery, "If you refine me to death, you're going to die too." Qin Mu immediately said, "Old Ma, I made an oath of alliance with him, we have a pact of earth count." Pact of earth count. Cripple and Old Ma's hearts shook slightly. Old Ma immediately shut the third eye on his forehead, and said with a solemn expression, "Mua, you are too gutsy. Do you know how treacherous is pact of earth count? How can you sign this kind of oath with other people? Furthermore, the other person is not even a human, but a devil god from another world." Cripple shook his head. "How reckless. You're playing around with your life. Why did you have to make a pact of earth count with him? You just needed to tell us and we could have gotten rid of him." Qin Mu said, "I wanted to learn the language of Yudu. There was no need for a pact of earth count for that. Should have handed him over to Butcher, who would have definitely treated him with sincerity, until he spilled everything in 3 to 5 days." Cripple shook his head. "Butcher loves to play with gods and devils. He can make them desire death, after barely 3 to 5 days. Let Butcher deal with him, if he doesn't die, I'll teach you." Qin Mu said with a blush on his face, "The pact of earth count is already made and can't be changed anymore. I'm going to prepare to summon the devils now, and I'll have to trouble grandpas to help me." Old Ma said, "Feel free to summon them, we'll just get rid of them." Qin Mu went to the warehouse of Imperial College to buy some bones. He took out his talisman treasure and started to summon the devils. Imperial College taught all kinds of techniques and spells, so no matter if it was the righteous path, devil path, or the Buddha path, there were some spells that required human bones to cultivate. So there were always some in the warehouse. The summoning went smoothly, and soon the runes on the devil god sculpture lighted up. This time, there was no terrifying sight like what had happened in Heaven Wave City. The lack of it made it obvious that the devil god he was summoning now wasn't as strong as Juqian Devil King. In the sky above Imperial College, the astronomical phenomenon changed as majestic magic power broke through the sky and descended. It was like a black pillar crashing straight onto the scholars' residence. At this moment, countless directorates and scholars in Imperial College were alarmed, and even the Grand Chancellor was no exception. The strong practitioners in the capital city also looked over with anxiousness. Meanwhile, in Qin Mu's courtyard, the devil summoning was still on the way. Crackling sounds came from the wooden sculpture of the devil god, and it grew taller and bigger. Qin Mu heard a devilish voice growling, "This petty and lowly world, prepare to welcome the wrath of Kaiahe, devil god from Juqian." At this moment, Buddha's aura shone brightly in the sky above Imperial College. A huge Buddha sat down in the sky and opened up his palm that was over a hectare large. The palm pressed down, making a crackling sound. Before the consciousness and magic power of this Kaiahe devil god could descend, he was shattered along with the expanding wood. Most of the directorates and scholars in Imperial College were shocked again. When the strong practitioners and guards of the capital city saw this, they calmed down. It's the Imperial College after all, there are always experts there. This level of cultivation in Buddhism is even rare in Great Thunderclap Monastery. For Imperial College to have such an expert, they can't be underestimated. Jiyu Linwan brought a few directorates of Imperial College, and rushed to the place of incident. Qin Mu popped his head out from the courtyard and smiled. Everyone came just at the right time, their devil god had just jumped out, but he was beaten to death by my elder. Jiyu Linwan's heart leaped, and he gave a smile that was not a smile. "Be careful, Lord Qin. Don't destroy our scholars' residence." "All right everyone, disperse. With Lord Qin's elder here, there will be no problems in Imperial College." The directorates looked at one another in dismay. Jiyu Linwan always couldn't get along with Qin Mu, so why was he so easygoing now? This situation was clearly Lord Qin summoning the devil, so why isn't Jiyu Linwan causing trouble for him? Everyone was bewildered. Summoning a devil in the capital city is a death crime. Why is Grand Chancellor letting it be? Jiyu Linwan left first, with cold sweat rolling down his forehead. His elder is here. Was it the blind man, who had raised the river, or the cripple that had stolen my sheath? Or could it be the half-bodied fiendish old man? No wonder His Majesty said I can't mess with him. I really can't mess with him. These fiendish people actually dare to walk out of great ruins. The capital is no longer peaceful, any devils and monsters can actually come here. Qin Mu closed the door, and the directorates were alarmed. They immediately called the other scholars out of their residences and said, "It's extremely dangerous here. Don't stay in scholars' residence temporarily, otherwise you might not even know how you died. Scholars, go hide it out for 2 days and come back after it's peaceful again." All the scholars were in a daze after seeing the devil god and Buddha that had just appeared out of thin air and knew that scholars' residence was not a safe place anymore. So they immediately left. "Why are you not summoning the other devil gods?" Juqian Devil King's voice asked in Qin Mu's mind, questioning him. Qin Mu shook his head. "I've already fulfilled my promise and summoned your subjects. Now it's your turn to teach me the language of Yudu." Juqian Devil King was stunned for a moment. There are still 4 sculptures. Devil King, our oath is already half complete. Summoning 1 is summoning, same as summoning 5 is still summoning. Qin Mu then added, "If you don't fulfill your promise, Earth Count will take you to Yudu." Juqian Devil King was so angry that he broke out into a laugh. "What a crafty fellow, waiting for me to fall into the trap here. Very well, luckily I also kept a trump card. I shall teach you the language of Yudu, but only 1 sentence. I didn't say I would teach you the entire language of Yudu when I made the oath." Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open. Juqian Devil King was pleased with himself. "I shall only tell you the words on this door, while as for the words on your scroll, you can forget about learning them. If you want to learn the entire language of Yudu, you can go down to Yudu and ask them yourself." These few days, Qin Mu had transformed into the form of Saturn's sovereign, and the words on the apparition of the gate had gradually become clearer. The words on the gate had been revealed and he could see them clearly, but the words of the scroll were still blurry. He probed, "If I summon the other 4 sculpture over as well, will you teach me Yudu's writings on the scroll as well?" "No." Juqian Devil King was resolute. Qin Mu let out a sigh and smiled. "In that case, teach me that sentence on the door." Juqian Devil King gave off a strange sound which seemed to be given by the soul. The weird sounds seemed like they were produced by billions of warped souls, and when Qin Mu tried it out, he realized that the strange language was unable to be produced by a human, so he couldn't help being astonished. Juqian Devil King chuckled. "Some languages are not something a lowly life like you can ever learn. You produce your sounds through your throat, while the language of Yudu is not produced through the throat." When he spoke to hear, Qin Mu suddenly gave off a sound that wasn't produced through the throat. That sound came from his soul, and it sounded very similar to what Juqian Devil King had made. Juqian Devil King was slightly stunned and became on guard. This little devil is so clever, to actually realize that it was a sound produced by the soul upon learning that it didn't use the throat. If he continues to grow, I might not be able to beat him. It's best to kill such a clever devil as soon as possible. Qin Mu tried to produce sounds from the soul, and after a while, he finally learned the sentence completely. "What's the meaning of this sentence?" Juqian Devil King didn't reply and Qin Mu was about to ask again, when the other said, "This sentence means Gate of Earth Origin." Qin Mu was slightly startled. "Gate of Earth Origin? You're not lying to me?" Juqian Devil King chuckled. "Lie to you? Why would I lie to you? It really means Gate of Earth Origin, there's no mistake." Qin Mu was skeptical. For Juqian Devil King to suddenly be so generous, there was definitely something wrong with the sentence. Qin Mu's gaze flickered, and he smiled. "Juqian Devil King, you can leave my body now. I already used winter crystal iron to make a god statue mechanism for you, so you can enter it. You can do whatever you want and summon any devil you want after that." Juqian Devil King smiled. "You want to trick me into leaving so that the one-armed old monk can kill me? I'm not that stupid." Qin Mu shook his head and said to Old Ma and Cripple, "Grandpas, I'll help you reattach your limbs now." Old Ma said, "When you help us reattach our limbs, that devil god will likely take the chance to escape." Why don't we just refine him to death now? Qin Mu said solemnly, I can't go back on my word. I had promised to make a god statue mechanism for him, and let him enter, so I can't eat my words. Old Ma didn't say anything more. Qin Mu took the bed out for Old Ma to lie on. He then took out Old Ma's arm from the medicinal cauldron and helped him to reattach it. He was busy reattaching when a spark flashed across the heart of his brows and landed on the 8-armed and 4-faced god statue with a sizzle. Cripple raised his eyebrows and beamed at him. This nuisance of a devil king. I can let you run 800 miles first. Juqian Devil King took control over the god statue, and discovering that he could move freely, he immediately sprinted away. Just as he ran out of Qin Mu's courtyard, he heard a clack, after taking over a dozen steps, and the 2 joints on his legs locked closed. Clacking came from the joints in his entire body, which sounded like locks being locked tight shut. The 8 arms of Juqian Devil King were raised high in the air, and he had one leg raised up which couldn't be put down. His entire body was stiff and he was unable to move. TCH, you tricked me. A flustered and exasperated voice came from the god statue as it scolded. Hu Ling's head popped out from Qin Mu's courtyard and took a glance at the devil god statue, which was frozen in place. Didn't young master already tell you? He was going to be making a god statue mechanism for you. You see, haven't you been tricked by the mechanism instead? That's right. Do you think young master is a male fox that has turned into a spirit? I think he's a little. Qin Mu reattached Old Ma's arm and Cripple's leg, placing the 2 elders in the medicinal cauldron. He had boiled a full decoction to cook to the 2 people, while asking Hu Ling to maintain the fire beside the cauldron. He walked out of the room and saw the sky turning dark outside. He went out of the courtyard and there was nobody around. They should have gone away to hide from the danger, and only Juqian, Devil King, was still standing in the alley outside Scholar's residence, unable to move. Qin Mu went forward and opened up the god statue's stomach. Inside, there were hundreds of intricate gears, and he stretched his hands in to give the gears a few turns. Juqian, Devil King, immediately felt his legs able to move again, and hurriedly began to run. After a few steps, he heard the clacking throughout his entire body, and his joints were all locked again. Big Dragon, pull him back into the courtyard, Qin Mu told the dragon Chileen outside. The dragon Chileen wagged its tail, and carried its bulging stomach forward to bite one of the legs of Juqian Devil King. It then dragged him across the floor, and threw him into the corner of Qin Mu's courtyard with a clank. TCH, come and fight me if you have the guts. Juqian Devil King scolded non-stop. What hero are you for locking me in place? Qin Mu turned a deaf ear to his cries and continued to mix the spirit herbs. Lightning suddenly appeared on the body of the god statue when the Devil King tried to fly out, but all kinds of runes lighted up. They were bright and contained lightning in the god statue. Juqian Devil King spewed out vulgarities again. The god statue was imprinted with the sealing runes of Roland's Golden Palace. Qin Mu had learned from the treasury there and had secretly placed them on the god statue while making it. Qin Mu was worried that the Devil King could still escape after entering the god statue, so he had added this kind of rune seal. Qin Mu finished mixing the herbs and looked seriously at Juqian Devil King, who was in the corner. You shall teach me all you know about the language of Yudu, then I'll release you. I'd be dumb to believe you. Juqian Devil King retorted angrily. Forget about tricking me again. Qin Mu had an honest face as he said sincerely, we can sign the Pact of Earth Count if that would put you at ease. At ease your ass. Hey, why is a Devil King like you spewing vulgarities like this? Vulgarities your ass. Forget about making me believe your words. If I believed you, I'd be the grandson of a tortoise. Cripple and Old Ma lay in the huge cauldron comfortably while the medicinal decoction bubbled and popped. Little Fox, increase the fire. Cripple narrowed his eyes and looked at his huge golden chain floating on the water. He then turned his head around and took a glance at the complaining Juqian Devil King before giving a laugh. This brat Mua has really grown up. I thought that you and I would have to make a move to get rid of this nuisance of a Devil King, but never would have I thought he would settle it by himself. Now I'm a little worried, not for him but for the people who are against him. Come to think of it, who did he learn to be so bad from, such craftiness? Old Ma stared at Cripple. The huge golden chain on his neck had also floated up on the water, the gold plating almost getting cooked off it. Cripple was bewildered. There are only good people in the village, so who did this brat learn to be crafty from? Could he have gotten bad after leaving the village? Old Ma continued to stare at him. Cripple smiled. What are you looking at me for? Is there something on my face? You're making my hair stand on end with your staring. Old Ma, were you a constable in the past? Every time you look over, I can feel my hair standing up. Old Ma turned away, and said indifferently, I've been a constable for dozens of years and later held an appointment in the Government Office of Justice. After I solved a huge case and became well known, Great Thunderclap Monastery found me and I stopped working as a constable. No wonder I always feel uneasy when you look at me. The monks of Great Thunderclap Monastery sure are busybodies, coming to find you even after you returned to your normal life. The two people were cooked the whole night, and during the process, Qin Mu changed the medicine a few times. When the day finally broke, Old Ma and Cripple got out and washed up. Qin Mu had already prepared breakfast, and they sat down to eat together. Hu Linga ran to help Qin Mu wash the bowls while Cripple rose with a smile. Mua, Old Ma and I won't stay here any longer, we're leaving. Qin Mu hurried, dried his hands and said, I'll see Grandpa's out. Old Ma waved his hand. There's no need. Cripple and I are at ease seeing how well you're getting by. We're both old and you can already protect yourself. Cripple still propped himself on his cane, and took a look at him with a smile. Old Ma is getting sentimental again. Oh well, come and see us off. If you don't, he will be sad for the next 2 or 3 days. Qin Mu followed them and sent them all the way down to the mountain. Grandpa Ma, Grandpa Cripple, your arm and leg were just reattached, so you won't be able to exert too much force with them. You have to nurse them for a year or 2 years, training them frequently so that no hidden dangers are left behind. Old Ma nodded. Cripple sighed. I've gotten used to not having a leg in these 20-30 years. I'm actually not that comfortable with having the leg that was severed suddenly growing back. Old Ma felt the same. Having been disabled for over half my lifetime, I keep feeling I have no need for this hand that has returned. Qin Mu sent them to the mountain gate, and Cripple smiled. Go back, you don't have to send us any farther. Old Ma waved his hand. Remember to come home for New Year's. I'll definitely return. Qin Mu nodded seriously and saw them off. Old Ma and Cripple walked out of the capital, and Cripple sighed ruefully. The little baby that we picked up back then has really grown up, yet we had almost sent him away back then. Old Ma agreed with a nod. Almost. Luckily you stole him back. The little brat isn't that gullible after our teachings. I was always worried he would be at a disadvantage outside, but now I can return to the village at ease. When Cripple said this, he suddenly stopped. Old Ma also stopped. The two elders looked toward Mud River in front of them. On the river surface, a middle-aged man was standing. Despite the water churning under his feet, he didn't move an inch. Cripple raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile, Imperial Preceptor, your injuries are healed. Eternal Peace. Imperial Preceptor nodded. My injuries are healed, how are the both of you? Old Ma exercised his shoulders and said in a solemn voice, we can still fight a battle. Cripple shook his leg and sighed. Mua said not to exert too much strength, but if we were to fight, I could still use one leg. Imperial Preceptor, you sure keep your composure. You knew we were in the room that day and knew I was the one who stole your items, but you still chose to leave and held yourself back until now. It must not have been easy. Eternal Peace. Imperial Preceptor said indifferently, my injuries were not healed back then, so I had no choice but to back off. Both of you are seniors and not evil people. Even when you were stealing, it was for disaster relief. I don't want to make a move on both of you, so as long you hand the Emperor's disc over, I'll leave you alone. We don't need to damage our good relationship. Emperor's disc. Cripple and Old Ma looked at each other and smiled. I've researched Emperor's Disc, that toy, for over 20 years to no avail. So it's no problem even if I give you, however, I've already gifted it to another. Gifted it away. Stars suddenly appeared above Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's head, forming a bright river of stars. It was evident that his inner heart was no longer calm. Who did you give it to? The Palace Grandee of your Eternal Peace Empire. Cripple chuckled and left with old Ma. Palace Grandee. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was stunned for a moment and looked at the back of the two people. He didn't make a move but said softly, the Emperor's Disc was given to him. He actually dared to take it. Is he planning to rebel? The Emperor's Disc is an artifact that was given to the founding emperor by a god, and it represents the imperial power. Furthermore, it is rumored to hide a secret. Should I ask for it from him? He stood on the heart of the river and muttered to himself for some time, before shaking his head and turning to leave. Imperial power is not something that can be decided by an item, even if it's Emperor's Disc. Imperial power comes from the support of people, and has no relation to the Emperor's Disc. In Scholar's residence, Qin Mu poured away the medicine decoction, and washed the medicinal cauldron and medicinal furnace. After scrubbing them a few times until there were no more stains, he placed them under the sun to dry. Hu Linga was helping to clean up, when she saw a jade hoop on the table and exclaimed in astonishment. Young master, the two elders left something behind. Qin Mu moved over to take a look and saw some writings on the jade hoop which looked very familiar. This is Grandpa Cripple's Emperor's Disc. Grandpa Cripple must have left it here. When I went into the darkness with village chief, Grandpa Cripple had hung this Emperor's Disc on my neck, but I didn't have to use it. Why did Grandpa Cripple leave it here? He always picks up stuff along the way and never loses anything. He shook his head and tied the Emperor's Disc to his jade pendant while thinking to himself, I'll return it to him after I return to the village. He then dragged Juqian, Devil King out and opened the stomach of the god statue. He did some adjustments and changed the orbit of the gears before saying, Devil King, you can move now. Juqian Devil King sneered, you're playing with me, I'm not moving. Little brat, wait for my true body to descend, I'll make your life a living hell then. Hu Linga stood up and crossed her paws on her waist. My young master has 100 ways to make your life a living hell. Qin Mu said meaningfully, Linga, that's too little, how could 100 be enough? Juqian Devil King chuckled. Little brat, feel free to show me what you got. If I got scared, I would disgrace my cultivation of over tens of thousands of years. Qin Mu advised him, what's the need for that? We are all from the devil path. Since I'm also of the devil path, you can just teach me the language of Yudu that you know and I'll let you off, isn't that good for both of us? Bah! Juqian Devil King spat. Qin Mu sneered, I shall send you to Hall of Azure Yang to let Monk Fa Ching chant scriptures at you every day. Monk Fa Ching loves to redeem a devil, so he will definitely be overjoyed. Juqian Devil King sneered, he, I'm a devil that has become a god, redeeming me with just that. Let that monk Fa Ching come and let's see if he will redeem me, or I will turn him into a devil. Qin Mu hesitated. Juqian Devil King was really devilish, so if monk Fa Ching came to redeem him, he might actually end up turned into a devil instead. Young master, why hasn't he turned us into devils? Hu Linga was bewildered. Juqian Devil King shouted out in exasperation, you little fox devil, do you guys even need me to turn you into devils? You two were such from the very start. I admit defeat this time, just end me. Qin Mu shook his head and said softly, I'm not that kind of person. Linga, let him follow you from now on, I'll teach you how to control this mechanism. This video will end here.